Hi, how are you?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us at World of Pets podcast. We love having you here on a weekly basis. And we want our pets to live as long as possible, but we want that to be a good quality life. So, to that end, we on this podcast explore all things about pets and animals so that we can have them around for a long time, but they are living a quality life. So, again, thank you for joining us. Take it away, hosts.
Welcome to the World of Pets podcast. We have got a wonderful topic tonight, how dogs learn and the truth about dog behavior. We have a brand new guest, Robert Kaizer, but I want to welcome in Anthony, the great Anthony, by the way, to this. And let's talk about a little bit about Canine Friends and Foundation.
Canine Friends Foundation? Yeah, we started, the foundation started about a year ago. I retired from engineering and bought about 7.5 acres out here in Tucson. We're very close to the Arizona Sonora Desert Museum. We have 2 buildings where we are currently housing our rescue dogs, and the accommodations are very nice. They're cooled in the summer, heated in the winter. We have taken in a lot of dogs that had some really severe behavioral issues, which would have prevented them from being adopted at the shelter. They would have eventually been euthanized. And then we train them. We do a kind of a 3-pronged training. EIO is what I call it: engagement, then impulse control, then obedience. And obedience kind of flows through the first 2 anyway. And then we analyze them. We do an evaluation, and most of them are adoptable. We have a couple that I don't feel could go into a home, so they're sanctuary dogs. And we get along fantastic, but I would say they're a little touchy. So it would be a very special type person that could handle those particular dogs. Not suitable for a family, that kind of thing, but still well-trained and quite sweet. But we have several that are available. A lot of them are pit bulls. We have done a lot of work with German Shepherds and Australian Shepherds, and really mostly all breeds. And we do offer training as a way to subsidize the rescue. We have a county corso coming in April for service dog training.
Okay.
From a good friend of mine who I adopted a Dogo Argentino out to several years ago, and that dog became his service dog. And he needs a large dog. He's in his 80s, so he needs a dog that if he falls, he can pull himself up with. And so this dog is now about 6 months old, or will be in April. And it's female, and she's about 70, 80 pounds now. So she'll go about 100 pounds. And she'll come in for complete training, including recall. And the service part will be so she'll allow him to grab her and use her to help him get up. And things like he can grab her and she'll walk maybe really slow so he can start getting his legs underneath him. And then if he says, hey, hold on, the dog will stop and then go. And stuff like that for him. So we do offer training. So that'll be a board and train.
So how have you paired up with that kind of training and that kind of opportunity for people?
How do we get paired up for it? It's been word of mouth. It's been word of mouth for years. I don't have training. I have a website that I'm still finishing up, but I don't advertise training. I haven't had to. I've spent several years in the Phoenix area with the whole goal of keeping rescue dogs in their homes, and I've worked with hundreds of them, and we've been really successful with that because rescue dogs can carry baggage, and people need to be educated in how to deal with that properly so they can have a lot of fun with their dogs. And a lot of dogs, regardless of being rescued, suffer from reactivity, leash problems. So we teach them that, and it's usually a handler situation more than the dog, but we have a protocol we go through, several steps that teaches the dog to not react, to analyze the situation, to come back to the owner. Recall is very critical with that part. So that after time, and it takes time, it can take a couple of months, then they can go out and they can walk their dog around other dogs. And some dogs will react to people, but we teach that too. And then they can start walking their dogs around other people so that they can have a comfortable relationship with their dog. And relationship building engagement is the most important part of dog ownership. You want a happy dog, but one that's also going to behave properly. You don't want to turn your back and they jump on the counter, which is, normal food. That one's really tough because I have even my own. They get pretty smart and they're like, yeah, he's in the bathroom.
If you turn your back, I'll jump on the counter.
Yep, some of them are wicked smart, but they can be taught it. But it does take consistency, and probably the most important thing in dealing with dogs is clarity. They need to know when you're saying something, it means the same thing every time. If you're not clear all the time, you can create a chaotic environment, and the dog is like, I'm not sure, and it can cause stress to the dog. And there are times, very rare, but there have been times we've needed to put dogs on some behavioral medication. Some dogs have to stay on it forever. It depends on the amount of their anxiety and if it's genetic. And there is certainly anxiety that is derived from genetics. I mean, we see that. You saw the wolf you were talking about in Washington. A lot of the wolves you see today, they're a little anxious. They're not as friendly as, say, they were before this country was settled. They're a little more gregarious, but those were the easy ones to eliminate. So the ones that were left were the ones that were more skittish and afraid. And since dogs did come from wolves, that genetic structure exists, and it can get passed into certain dogs.
Sure.
But it's pretty rare that I have to use Prozac, on a dog. And it's a serotonin function. If they don't generate enough serotonin concentration in their brain, then they're always going to be a little bit on edge. They're not going to be really happy. It's going to be hard to. Serotonin also builds confidence, and it's going to be difficult to build confidence in a dog if they always feel like they're living in a state of stress.
Right.
And we call that allostosis. There's homeostasis and allostasis. And homeostasis is just how we normally behave, how we hang around. It's our stress levels normal. But in animals and people who are suffered chronic stress, they go into this state of allostasis, which means they're above homeostasis, but just below, going over threshold. So it doesn't take much stimulus to push them over threshold. So, our job is we want to get that dog to understand that you need to relax, you need to control yourself, you need to learn how to do that. Because then the dog's a lot happier as well. So we do a lot of behavioral conditioning here. It's kind of been our. I'm sorry?
Talking about behavioral and emotional things with dogs, it's kind of going to move us into a good segue for a topic here. And there's a question in the comments that I think will tie into one of the questions that we have in our pre-production meeting, and that is somebody in the comments said, I have two cane corsos. They are amazing dogs, but a lot of dog. You're talking about dogs being stressed. So when you talk about something like a cane corso, which is a big dog, being a lot of dog, what are some signals that dog owners are missing to tell when a dog is stressed, so that doesn't get to the point where they are giving them up, like in what many of the situations you're dealing with?
Yawning. When a dog rarely yawns if they're tired, they yawn when they're in stress. Apollo Ono, a speed skater in the Olympics a while back, he used to yawn before every competition because it was a stressful competition. Dogs do the same thing. Yawning. Sometimes being hypervigilant, too vigilant about their environment. Constantly moving their head, constantly looking for something. It's like they're on guard instead of just their tongue hanging out the side of their mouth, walking around, going, "Yeah, this is cool." Tails being tucked, and people will know when a tail is tucked when it's wrapped way up under their genitals. You can see that, yeah, clearly that dog's stressed. But there are other signs where the tail is slightly tucked. The slow wagging tail is not a good thing. For example, and another one is that people might think is cute, but it's not. It's really a signal. Is if you've ever taken your dog on a walk, and they'll smell everything hanging around, and they might smell some poop. They're smelling the anal gland secretion on the poop, which contains the pheromones of the dog that left it. And that can tell the dog pretty much everything about that dog, including the dog's stress level. And every now and then you might see a dog smell it and raise one paw. Just raise one paw. And as soon as they raise that paw, that dog's on alert. That dog is smelling something it's not comfortable with. And a lot of times raising the paw is accompanied with the dog scanning the area kind of slowly to see if that animal is still in the area. There's a lot of good videos that show when you're in that show introducing a dog, and when they raise their paw, you want to stop it immediately. You don't want to continue because that dog is on alert. And once that dog goes on alert, there's, epinephrine, norepinephrine, which we used to call adrenaline, noradrenaline, that starts getting secreted, and the blood pressure goes up, the heart rate goes up, and if we allow that to go on more than 4 or 5 seconds, then you start getting a secretion of cortisol. And once you get a large enough concentration of cortisol, that's the fight or flight hormone, you have a problem. You can't train or communicate with that dog at that point. So you need to remove the dog from the area and give the dog time to settle. Cortisol has a 3-hour half-life. So depending on the concentration that once allowed the dog to reach, that's going to tell you how much time you have to give the dog away from these distractions to settle down and be in a position where you can work with the dog and the dog will understand you and listen to you. And then there are some dogs that they might have their own unique way of saying I'm stressed. And that is something owners usually have to learn kind of on their own. It's possible that a dog, if they get stressed at something, they might run and jump on the couch and lay right next to you, cuddle up right next to you, because that gives them a safety zone. It's not a good thing to have happen because the dog can start to resource guard the human. And we
Yeah.
don't want that to occur either. So there's so those are some of the things that I think people should watch out for. The ears are interesting. Dogs will perk their ears up, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're stressed or becoming aggressive. They're just analyzing the sounds that are coming in. When a dog puts its ears way back, that's a good sign. Certainly if they're approaching you, you see your dog put its ears back. It's like, yeah, I get to see my bud. I'm not going to do anything to make them feel anything but pleasant. That I want to be with them. Certainly a very fast wagging tail where the butt even moves, that's a sign of a happy dog. But the slow moving tail, that's something to be a little worried about. Certainly focus. If a dog starts to focus on something, that's another thing, because they usually are happy to scan the area, move around, look around, all that kind of thing. But if they go still and focus, they are starting to generate these increases in epinephrine or norepinephrine. They're starting to build up on the threat ladder. A lot of times it'll go away, just like it does with people. So just things like that people could look for.
Yeah, you mentioned something earlier, and I just want a little clarity. You said when a dog jumps up, next to you, and they start, you use the term resource guarding. Can you expand on that a little bit? I'm curious about that.
What exactly is it?
Resource guarding?
Yeah.
Resource guarding can be very, very dangerous with regard to dogs. So, and it's best to, if you can do it with a puppy, you can usually eliminate it from the beginning. But with rescue dogs and older dogs, a lot of them do resource guard. The most common one is they resource guard food. You put food down. If you're to walk by or get close to their food, some dogs will start to growl, or their head will just stop moving. I mean, they'll go still. That dog is going to protect that item at that time. There's resource guarding toys. These are my toys. The worst things that dogs resource guard, as far as what we would call a toy in a sense, are any kind of a bone or a chew bone or something like that. A lot of kids have been bit because they want to grab the bone and throw it, and they go to grab the bone, and the dog is, this is my bone. Resource guarding can be fixed, usually. It takes time, and you aren't going to fix it by getting mad at the dog. You will not fix it by doing aversive behaviors to the dog, such as shocking them with a shock collar. You're not going to fix it by imposing yourself on the dog, thinking they're going to go, I have to behave. That isn't going to happen. So you have to teach them. And I do this here. And here's an example. None of my dogs, none of my rescues here resource guard. Some started at the beginning, but they don't now. So I have had occasions. I have a desk outside where I sit with, I bring all the dogs out, we play, and we do all these things. And every now and then, I'm human, I'll forget I have a pack of hot dogs on the desk. And I'll get up to say, go in, and I'll come back out. I'll get some water or something. And the hot dogs are gone. And I go over, and the dogs has hot dogs. And so what I do in that case is they do know that they have to allow me to take the hot dogs. And I take the hot dogs, but I don't completely eliminate from them. I will take the hot dog and the package of hot dog, and I'll reach in and I'll break a little piece off after they've given it back to me, and I'll give them a little piece. So they're not losing it. They're getting something, but they're not guarding it If all I did was took it away, yelled at them, one day they're going to go, oh, well, I'm not giving it back because I'm not going to get anything. Drugs, people, we all work on a reward system. We go to work, we get paid. We get paid once a week, we get paid once a month, however, but we get paid. And that's a continuous reward.
Right.
And we all work on reward systems, whether it's a pat on the back, playing a game, and dogs do too. But we have to manage the rewards properly. So that's, I do have a dog here. He's in my house. His name's Booker. He bit 5 people before I got him, and all of it was resource guarding. Now, Booker was a strange case. Booker, it wasn't just food or toys. Booker would get into a state of mind where he'd resource guard a piece of paper. And you go up next to him and the teeth are out, it's a piece of paper. So what I wound up doing with Booker, because I couldn't trade him, I couldn't say, give me the bone and I'm going to give you, say, this piece of steak. And then you give him the piece of steak, you take the bone. And then you can kind of give the bone back to him. And you give him a piece of steak. In other words, you keep going back and forth to teach him that I'm taking the bone, but you know what? You can get it back. Don't be afraid. You're never going to see it again. Booker wasn't in that scenario. He'd just go into a strange state of mind. So Booker, I put on Prozac, the lowest dose, and over about 9 months, that pretty much is completely abated. I'm not going to say the behavior's gone extinct, but it's close. During that time, it was a couple of months he'd started, then it was 3 months he'd started, and this has been a couple of years now with him. So I am weaning him off the Prozac. Before that, when I started to wean him off that little bit, it would recur quickly. So, part of the thing, if you want to extinct the behavior in a dog, you can't allow them to self-reward themselves by continuing the behavior. Resource or dog reactivity, if they continually react, they'll just continue to react more and more. So, one has to, there's a nice protocol one can go through to eliminate that behavior.
Very
so
good.
it's
yep. Robert, so that we can move on to another point, because we're going to run short here on time. We definitely want to have you back on. But we want to talk about rehabilitation of an abused or disabled animal. What is your take on that? What is involved in that process?
Rehabilitation of abused animals is very difficult because a truly abused animal is not the dog that goes and hides in a corner. It's not the dog that, if you approach, starts going into submission. An animal that has truly been abused, and I've dealt with a lot of them, they'll act pretty normal, but given the proper trigger, they can turn very quickly into a very aggressive animal. So that I deal with and again in a very gentle manner. I don't use aversive techniques on those animals. I don't put a prong collar on them and yank them. I don't put a shock collar on them and shock them when they misbehave. That isn't going to work. It's going to make it worse. And it takes months for an abused animal. I have worked with blind dogs and deaf dogs. I have a deaf dog here. They're pretty easy to work with. The blind dog was great, Rocky. He's awesome. He knows the word watch, which means, there's something I'm going to hit, so I'm going to move a bit. And you give him a slight little tug on the lead, go this way, go that way. He's just the sweetest guy. getting him to deal with other dogs. He's not the problem. The other dogs are, because he doesn't understand dog language because he can't see. And so the other dogs, they're like, I don't know what to do with this dog. And that'd be difficult. But the abused dogs are not what a lot of people will say. This dog just seems like it was abused. And I go, why? Well, I put my hand on the top of its head and it ducks its head, and stuff like that. That's not necessarily true with an abused dog. That's kind of true with a lot of dogs, because some dogs are just head shy. And you don't know if you're getting an abused dog when you go to the shelter.
It's true.
It's really good to go through. I go through a complete evaluation. I test their triggers. I use sticks, belts, fly swatters. I don't hit them or anything with them, of course, but I do go through the motions as if so, to see if they trigger to some of these stimulus, so we know where we're at and we can fix it. And I never do that until after I've have complete engagement with the dog. I mean, till we're buddies, till we're bonded. Because I sure as heck don't want to get bad. I want them to, if I do something like that to them and that is a trigger, I want the dog to look at me in confusion. Like, this isn't you, what's going on.
Absolutely. Awesome. Hey, so in the last few minutes here, tell us a little more about Canine Friends Foundation, and is your website active? I know you mentioned earlier you've been working on it. Is it up and running? How can people get in touch with you? How can they help you?
It's pseudo active. You can go to caninefriendsfoundation.org. There are pages that I haven't finished off, that I need to finish off. I do have a couple of blogs on equipment, which it's a boring topic, but it's incredibly important. I've like those little latches, that people use on the leashes. Those are like the worst things on the planet. I have had dogs, how dogs shake, right? I have had dogs shake so much that thing will pop off.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I've had that happen. I had that happen with this border collie I was working with. But during the time we're working, and they're always double leaded, the slip lead and then a clip lead. So equipment to me is really, really critical. But you can go to our website. My phone number is on there. We are starting, thanks to Christine and Val. You guys did a podcast with Val last week, I believe. She's just been phenomenally great with supporting us. And Christine, our president, she's just wonderful, and she's going to be moving down here soon. Because of them, we're gonna give a talk at the Kiwanis Club in a couple of weeks on this topic. We'll see what we can cover. We'll have a lot more time there, and it'll be more interactive. So that's we love Tucson. I found Tucson to be much more open to dogs and more interested in learning about dogs. I don't know about Colorado Springs, just haven't been there.
Yeah.
Beautiful, Pikes Peak.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're trying to make an impact in the community so we can keep dogs from being bred and keep the rescues in their homes. I do take phone calls for free. I do not charge for consultations when it comes to rescues that people have taken from the shelters or a rescue group, so that if they have problems, maybe we can solve them. And a lot of times the rates are super cheap for rescue dogs. I really want them to stay in their home. When they go back to the shelter, they don't have much choice. They're going to get euthanized because we're so full.
Yeah, no, well, that's really sad. Well, Robert, we're going to wrap this up. I want to thank you so much. We're definitely going to have way more time to talk on, probably, by my estimation, 5 more episodes based on the notes. You're so full of information. We really love it. But thank you for being on tonight, Anthony. It's wonderful to see you. Definitely going to be doing a live with you tomorrow. But in the meantime, go to debspets.com. That's debspets.com. And you can support this channel there. Just hit a thumbs up, a like, and a share. Leave a comment. That helps our metrics, gets the word out there.
You know, Bobby, David must really like you because he said you're full of information. He told me I was full of something, but it wasn't information. Anyway, thanks for listening today. We appreciate you being on. To our viewers, we want you to remember you're not alone. You are loved. And we appreciate you. If you need anything, please reach out to us. As we often say, we'd rather have a 3 a.m. conversation than to see your name in the headlines the next morning. So please feel free to reach out. Have a good day, everybody.
You're wonderful. Thank you for having me. You're so kind. It made it easier to talk.
So
And I
much
can
fun.
talk forever.
Thank you. I'm glad that you joined us for At World of Pets podcast. We would like for you to take a look at what our sponsors have to offer, and that sponsor is debspets.com. You can access it through the QR code, or you can just go to the website. So thank you for joining us, and hope to see you again next week.